Hello, everyone. My name is Cliff, or Clifford. Cliff is okay. Cliff Tom. And I'm doing this Chapter 7 review of what I deem is a very good book. So, pardon me if my eyes move over occasionally as I'm also reading and giving my overview and synopsis of author Lori J. Mullins, Management and Organizational Behavior. Now, this would be the 11th edition, I believe, and this is the text that I've assigned to my current Chinese at Chinese University that I am doing a survey with of management and management theory. So it is Saturday, right? This is where your minds are racing. Saturday, November 13th, 2021. I am currently displaced in lovely Phnom Penh, Cambodia, with several other expats due to the virus. So I just want to state the date because I'm going to be uploading this to YouTube. Maybe I'll refer to it again and I'll make it of a public manner as well. And since it's for academic reasons and purposes, I think we're safe in borrowing some of Ms. Mullins' information. I think maybe I've changed it around a little bit, but again, this is my own overview and synopsis. It's only 11 slides. I think I'll try to make it around 50 minutes or less in trying to update. And that is, of course, why these books, academic books, do editions, is to see where management, for example, where management has been and where it is going in the future, and possibly some predictions of where it will be in the future. Now, I'm not Wu Buhui Zhongwen, Shui Sheng, my students, I'm not going to speak any Chinese. If you have issues understanding my English, you feel free to go down and you hit the closed captions, but I'll be playing this for you in class as well, primarily because YouTube is more or less generally an English website, much like Facebook for some reason, even though most of the world, I should say, uses YouTube. So if there's apologies. Plus, it's a different language. When one gets their MBA, Master's of Business Administration, or their medical degree, right? These are advanced degrees, and it's a totally different language in English, let alone for me to be speaking business-related terms in Chinese. But that is why you have the text, and you can take your time to translate that accordingly. So, again, this is Chapter 7, Work Motivation and Job Satisfaction. We are just doing a survey of the book, no time to go through chapters individually, so I am pulling out what I feel are the best or the most important chapters. And I believe Ms. Mullins is definitely not from North America, as organizational is spelled with an S, as well as behavior with an added U. We North Americans, particularly United States, spell it with the Z, organizational, or a Z as British would say, and behavior without the U. So that being said, let's dive into slide number 2. And I'm hoping this is the first time I've done a video overlay, so hopefully it goes throughout the entirety. So Chapter 7, Work Motivation, please allow me to read the slide first, and then I'll give you my synopsis of the chapter. So work motivation and job satisfaction, some of the learning outcomes, what you will hopefully attain and learn from this chapter are. So this is a chapter that will enhance your ability to better explain the underlying principles and concepts of motivation, right? So motivation, what drives and compels the workforce, and what compels CEOs and the managers themselves, right? You can always say that there's it's either power or money, or generally the two, if you want to really look at the top when it comes to work. Is it, a politician or a world leader that likes the power, the prestige along with it, or is it just a money driver or influence when you want to become a CEO or start a large company, generally speaking, and then you work from there. And to detail, you'll also learn the details and various needs and expectations of people at work, right? Not everyone's the same. So to be a manager, you must know what drives and compels. That's why they have surveys. You get to know your employees and know what drives and compels them. And it's all right to be frank and honest in asking them. Some employees may be too shy to disclose that, but that's your duty and obligation to know your employees and drive and motivate them, compel them to buy in, so to speak, and want the best for the company, right? You're a family, so to speak, right, at the company, and you want the best for your family just as you do for your employees. The fourth bullet, or the fourth arrow on slide 2, so examine content theories of motivation and the work of leading writers. So this is all history. I'm not, even though I'm an English literature undergraduate as well as a master's holder in administration, I'm not a grammatist, nor am I a really historical buff, as I will show you in the slideshows, in terms of actual names. I know the names, but it's difficult. Some of them, with all due respect to the founders of these motivational theories, some are relatively no-brainers, like the carrot and the stick. Are you going to dangle money or another motivational factor for an employee, and carrot, right, with the rabbit, and have them come to you and achieve that? Or the stick, are you going to lay in and punish, which you must do as a manager nowadays? Of course, there's legal ramifications. If you're too harsh, you can't be physically harsh, well, at least in the civil world, even though we're seeing now, and still in 2021, human slavery, human trafficking. There was a big issue here in Cambodia. So as much as we like to think we're coming a long ways in humanity and business, it's sometimes history repeats, and it's almost regressionary. So going to the fifth bullet, we're also going to review in this chapter, you are going to review some process theories of motivation and the relevance within the workplace. So as we said before, some of the theories are very applicable today and some are not. We'll review that when we get to chapters 5 through, I believe, 10. Or slides 5 through 10, sorry. And then I'm going to change this, actually, going over and reviewing the slides that I'm going to be submitting while I'm talking, but that's all right. And we're also going to assess broader approaches to work motivation and satisfaction, which I will do. I will incorporate my opinion on where, especially having consulted, I'm a consultant as well as a professor, so in having consulted and professed or lectured or taught numerous managerial and financial courses and consulted with companies from Asia and around the world, the difference generally between the East and the West in terms of motivational theories, okay? And then explore the nature and dimensions of job satisfaction. Again, it's cultural, as well as not everyone's the same. So as much as we can say there's an Asian mindset and a Western mindset, that's not always true, as we're going to see in these slides as well. We're all about ourselves, family. If we're a religious individual, we care about that, but it's all about survival, and especially as we see a downward trend economically with the coronavirus here, that sometimes it's all about survival, and it's a survival instinct. So that's number one, the greatest motivator to work and secure money, right, for food for ourselves and our family, survival. And let me delete this one as well. And then finally, we're going to go over, or you should obtain the relationship values between work motivation, satisfaction, and then ultimately job performance, okay? So now slide 3, let me just read the significance of motivation, okay? So the relationship between the organization and its members is influenced by what motivates them to work and the rewards and fulfillment they derive from it. Okay, meaning what you put in short, right? You get what you put in. That should ultimately be management 101 in rewarding those that work harder and that are the best employees, right? Now, in today's day and age in civilized world, what I was just saying, you can't physically punish, even adding hours or what they used to do in the industrial age, were harsh working environments in the West, and child labor laws came into effect. You can't do that anymore. You might get sued, and there goes your company. However, you can always reward good workers, and hopefully that states or that is a driving factor for other employees to achieve, right? So that's in the Western world and most of the civilized world now, and in many parts of Asia, that is the decisive factor if you are getting out of the company what you're putting in, right? All right, the second paragraph, the more highly engaged and motivated the workforce. Workforce are the people working for the company, right? The more likely the success of the organization in achieving its goals and objectives. It's always, that's, I believe, another chapter that we have gone over, or will be going over, our goals, objectives, and missions. If you're a company without, I don't know how you're surviving or how you do survive without that. I've kind of been perplexed at some of these. Obviously, if they're still in business, they're doing something. Facebook derives it from advertising, so does Google, etc. But some of these online companies, I'm not sure, but a lot of it's microfinance now. So if you get even 5 cents on a video game to enhance your character's abilities, so all those 5 cents add up. And again, in today's application or app world, it could just be one developer. So that's just money in his pocket. He doesn't have to worry about any workforce. He doesn't have any. So motivation is at the basis. It is all about the organization and the organizational activity. So if you don't know what your mission is, it's hard to be successful. You don't know what your job description is or your role within the company. Those companies generally don't last very long, right? All right, the third and final paragraph on slide number 3, the study of motivation is basically concerned with why people behave in a certain way, right? So this is when you get your MBA, you get your master's, and especially your doctorate. It's a doctorate of philosophy, and then it's just within that area. So this is a philosophy, but it's also psychology, meaning what you, as a manager, you need to know psychologically what drives and compels and motivates your employees. So once you're able to diagnose that and diagnose them, the better you are at motivating and compelling them to want to work harder, be more proficient. But again, this is my take here in November of 2021. What does that mean when we have so many online companies nowadays that can just literally have one programmer? So it's an interesting dynamic, and it's definitely going to continue to morph and change, and especially with cryptocurrency, when reality, and now Facebook's coming out with the metaverse, where reality, what we used to do in terms of physical labor, I build, even in more modern times, I build my phone. We put it together, bits and pieces, and now just machines are building machines, right? So we are becoming, I forgot the exact author, but a famed author, and he consults, I believe, with Google now, singularity, where we don't have to do anything. We can order our food, even though there's a driver that comes here, but now we have driverless cars. The list goes on to where we really need to think about money, just the theory of money, because we're running out of jobs. We're literally running out of physical jobs. Okay. All right. The second sentence, the basic underlying question is, why do people do what they do? So again, that's psychological. Why do you do what you do? That's a psychological. That's 101. That's the first question of any psychologist. Why are you thinking that way? Why are you doing what you're doing? Right? To get to have a self awareness of the individual, to make them reckon, maybe correct their poor behavior or their harmful behavior. So, in general terms, motivation can be described as the direction and persistence of action. Okay, that's a relatively highbrow sentence, so let's dissect that. Motivation can be described as the direction and persistence of action. So, in essence, it just means to motivate somebody is to compel them to do something. And as a manager, your goal is to increase revenue, one would assume, and to motivate the workforce, hence to increase revenue. Now, again, there may be an audience out there that, oh, Cliff, what are you talking about? It's not all about money, right? That's the next wave of management. It might not be. You might work for a non-governmental organization, right? So it might be at an NGO to just help more people, right? That would be your mission, to go back to the mission. So you might not be profit-driven manager, okay? So you need to know your mission as a manager before you can comment or before you can manage other people. So it is concerned, the significance of motivation, it is concerned with why people choose a particular course of action in preference to others and why they continue with the chosen action, often over a long period in the face of difficulties and problems, right? So basically why, again, goes back to that question, why do people do what they do? And another English slang term, my good Chinese students, is, well, why do people do what they do? But now I just now I just lost it. But a good slang term is like what drives and compels and motivates, right? I've said this over and over again, but it will come back to me. Sorry about that. All right, so let's go on to number 4. Let me shrink this down so I can see it here better. Okay. So from a review of motivational theory, Mitchell, he's another motivational or another father of motivational theories, right, identifies 4 common characteristics that underlie the definition of motivation. It's bothering me that I had just had that on the tip of my tongue, which is another slang, right? The tip of my tongue that I didn't remember that slang, but hopefully it will come to me. Okay. So motivation is typified, right, as an individual phenomenon. Okay, every person is unique, as I said, and major theories of motivation allow for this uniqueness to be demonstrated in one way or another. Oh, birds of a feather flock together. There you have it. I knew it would come to me as we're reading more. Meaning, you want, or on the same page. There you have it. There's 2. Birds of a feather flock together, and to be on the same page. My grandmother always used to tell me that. Birds of a feather flock together. Now, as a manager, it depends. You might have to manage different departments. Again, you need to know your role. What are you managing? How many different divisions? How many different areas within the company? Now, a CEO, a chief executive officer, or an executive officer, are they managers? That's a good question. Yes, one would assume, of course. They're managing the managers, right? The mid-level managers. So to reach that level, to be a CEO, you're managing all aspects. So you've got to know each department's role. You've got to know the corporate structure. Now, to be on the same page would mean you're trying to drive everybody towards that mission statement. And in business, another phrase is the bottom line. To know that bottom line, what is that mission statement? And let's get everyone on the same page, even if they're in human resources, finance department, legal team, everyone's driven to achieve and to continue towards and to be wrapped around the corporate mission statement or the company mission statement. Okay. So Motivation, the second bullet, right? So motivation is described usually as intentional. To motivate someone is intentional as opposed to unintentional. I don't think you're going to have a manager tell you, you better come in on time or you're fired. That's not unintentional. That's an intentional motivator, correct? So I don't think anything within motivation, the theories of motivation, is unintentional because there's always a desired result coming from it, okay? So motivation is assumed to be under the worker's control, and behaviors that are influenced by motivation, such as effort expended, are seen as choices of action. That is definitely correct. You are your own person. Again, even though humanity or human labor is slowly dissipating, and I don't know how we'll motivate machines, but I guess that's artificial intelligence. They'll one day be smarter than we are, so that will be tricky. However, right now, in terms of motivating everybody and everyone towards that ultimate corporate goal or firm goal, to know why, again, goes back to that initial question, why are they doing what they're doing and how can we get them on the same page? So the third bullet, motivation is multifaceted. Multifaceted means there's many ways of trying to accomplish it. You don't want to be devious or hold any criminal behavior, but again, every country has different laws and rules and regulations, so it's always important to know as a manager what they are. And I'll talk about that again later on in this PPT presentation. So, let's go back, slide 4. The two factors of greatest importance are, right, number one, what gets people activated, arousal, what gets them going, in other words, what gets them to want to come into work, what gets them to want to sell that extra window or widget, as they say in business school, right, a thing, okay? And number two, motivation is the force of an individual to engage in desired behavior, right, a direction. Get them on the same page. How do we do this? Managers have managerial meetings, and then they have staff meetings, right? So managers of different departments, how do we all get on the same page, okay? The fourth bullet is the purpose of motivational theories, of what we're studying and what my good students are reviewing right now, is to predict it. You want to have all this information as an arsenal, right? That's why we have business schools, right? You want to have this information as an arsenal, meaning in your head, to eventually use within your managerial role, right? You're going to be hard pressed, even today, at Fortune 500 companies, to even midline executives that do not have their master's in some field, or that specialty field, whether it's human resources, etc. So, pardon me, my shoulder is a little out of whack. So the fourth bullet, the purpose of motivational theories is to predict behavior. Okay, motivation is not the behavior itself, and it is not performance. It's a extrinsic, even though it is intrinsic, it's within us to be motivated. It's an extrinsic force, meaning the manager does something, somehow compels the employee, the worker, the underling, so to speak, right, the person under him or her to achieve, okay, or to get better, to get on the same page. Motivation concerns action and the internal and external forces that influence a person's choice of action. That's another difficult sentence if you're not a native English. Even if you are a native English speaker, that's relatively difficult. But motivation concerns action, meaning what you do, and the internal and external forces, right? So what motivates you inside as well, what is compelling you in the outside world that's driving you to act. What makes a better employee, right? I'm finding there's so much human resources and so much time nowadays applying for these positions and consultancy jobs online, especially when we're all online nowadays in the last 2 years. But so many questions that I don't know if it's a rouse or a ruse to get us to take these surveys, because it could just be a ploy to get to know a worker, or what's the best worker, or how to shape a workforce. However, they have been helpful when you do a survey and you take your best workers, and if their answers are all relatively within a stratosphere, within a certain area, then you know what the target is. So I can understand some companies electing to do that before they even waste time and effort with a human interview. They want to know, do you fall within that spectrum of their better employees? Okay. All right, now we get on the fun stuff. Yeah. Cliff's take on the general theories of motivational theories. Okay. So this bubble graph here, right? It's figure 7.2 in Ms. Mullins' book. I believe is she a PhD? We'll give her credit. Dr. Mullins' book. Needs and expectations of people at work. So when you look at a bubble graph, you're always looking at the overlying one. So they're generally looking in the middle. Sometimes it could be a little bit funky. However, you're looking at this one, and then they're underneath. Okay, so this is the main one, and obviously it's highlighted, it's bolded. So needs and expectations at work, that's the title. One of them are obviously economic rewards. Even NGOs, somehow the employees must get paid by donations, right? We currently, I say currently, cannot live without money. We need money for everything, for dinners, for food, right, et cetera, et cetera. Intrinsic satisfaction, right? What makes you happy? You want your employee workforce to be happy, right? That is a quintessential management 101 process, is to make them happy, because if they're happy, generally, they could become lazy and indulgent, but generally they're a better working force. So, and social relationships, right? If they're happy at work, if they want to come to work, right? If they're happy with their colleagues and happy working alongside of their colleagues, then it's a better workforce. My dad always used to say, this is an old, showing my age here, everyone, with whistle while you work. Is that, the Disney movie? I forgot, not the Smurfs, right? But you get right, whistle while you work. And my dad would whistle sometimes, and obviously when you're whistling and you're having, even if it's taboo in some Asian countries, they don't whistle, but when you whistle and you're having a good time, some inline productions, they'd sing. Some of the hymns, the slavery hymns, right, were notorious, even though it was awful conditions, slavery, or say they were even post-antebellum in America, when they were arrested for anything. Blacks were arrested for anything because it was just the way of the South to keep them working. They would just sing, some slavery hymns to motivate themselves, because it was such an awful situation, right? So just using that as an example, as a social relationship to build camaraderie, is an old French word, right? Camaraderie. Esprit de corps, right, is another French word to build camaraderie amongst one another. That's also the military uses social relationships, obviously. Team building is a huge part of military training and management. Okay, so the sixth slide. This is the big one. If you go into any psychological graduate study, and you're going to be learning this, and you're learning this right now, but this is the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Okay, of course, some of them are debatable, and some of them it might not be. You might not achieve one versus the other one. One might be more important to you than the other one. But in general, hence the pyramid, right? The top being the most important of what we'd all like to achieve. And if you're a Buddhist, that is number one as well, as to self-actualize and to not let outside factors bother your mentality. Okay, so physiological, we all have our id. Sometimes we eat a little bit more than we should, than we know we should, but it just tastes so good. That's our animal instincts, our animal behavior. Of course, safety, right? If we're not living in a good situation, if we're homeless, we do not have a home, that's going to affect our productivity, our mentality, and definitely it's going to affect the working that we do for any company if you're homeless. More importantly, the safety of employees. So let's take that into the management and a workforce mentality. If you don't have a safe work environment, how productive and how happy is your workforce going to be, right? So hence there's been work safety laws, obviously child labor laws when they're having children, almost forced labor working there. So that's not, you want safety for your employees, obviously. Love, it's kind of a coined phrase, but of course, if you've got love and admiration and adulation from your bosses, then you're going to be more productive, as well as people underneath you. As a manager, do you want to be a hated manager? No. I don't think that's going to forebode. That's not going to bid you very well to have to be disliked, and to be hated is even worse, right? You're definitely not going to have employees wanting to do their best for you, okay? And esteem. So esteem, right? Recognition. You're getting higher up into a self-actualization mode when you know what needs to be done. You're very cognizant, and everything is just running smoothly. That's a difficult one to achieve constantly, because we're all humans at the end of the day. We feel jealousy sometimes, hatred, right? So it's difficult to be in your zone, so to speak. It's hard to be in business without sports metaphors. So when you're in the zone, it's hard to be in the zone all the time. Even the greats like LeBron James or Michael Jordan, that I'm sure everyone knows in China, they weren't in the zone all the time, but more so than everybody else. So you could say that a Michael Jordan, even though he's phenomenal athlete and his physicality, that definitely gets him up here. But his self-actualization of knowing what he needed to do, the practice, the hours. He was a great manager, motivating his basketball teammates, right? Was a self-actualization, but at the same time, he wasn't always in the zone. He didn't score all the points or play defense throughout, right? I mean, there were some moments that he wasn't the best. Okay. So the seventh slide, let's go to hygiene or maintenance factors. Again, that goes into the safety and security of the work environment. So some of the hygiene, right, 清的, I guess in Chinese, so it would be like there's a cleaning or to be clean. So obviously salary, again, wherever you work currently, we need money to pass along. That's economy, the sharing of money. Working conditions, as we said, you need safe and healthy and clean working environment. Level and quality of supervision, right? You want competent managers. If you have a manager that is incompetent, not good, it's hard to follow that leader, so to speak, right, again. And company policy administration, of course, you want a clear and precise way, your role as well as the mission statement of the company. What are you there and what are you about, and how are you going to go about to achieve that, okay? Some of the dissatisfiers, things that dissatisfy people, that make them upset or angry. So now we're getting into the motivation and job satisfaction realm. So some of the satisfiers, things that make people satisfied, is a sense of achievement. All right, you go into McDonald's, I believe even in Asia, and you'll see employee of the month, right? Maybe but probably get a check too, or who knows, right? Maybe an extra hamburger a week, I don't know. But that's just a little way of recognizing and giving an accomplishment, an achievement, acknowledging that your employees have been going above and beyond, right? And that's a recognition as well. So these are all similar terms. And responsibility, you also want to keep entrusting. You don't want a good employee to leave. So in order to give them obviously increased salary would be one way to keep them, maintain them. But you also want to increase their duties and responsibilities. If they're good, then you want to groom them to possibly take your role if you're progressing or maybe if you're retiring. And the nature of work is a satisfier, right? If you're doing like a Navy SEAL, for example, they burn out quickly, right? That is not a lifelong job because of the physicalities of it and emotionalities of it, mentality of it, as well as garbage men, right? So garbage men, as civil servants in the West, I know they make very good money, but again, they're breathing in all those harmful toxins, so they don't have a long life. And the same with some of these very physical sports, such as rugby and football, American football, is that the concussions, right? Not a long life, but they get paid well in the short time span that they're doing that sport. So that's the nature of the work, understanding the nature of the work. Personal growth and advancement. So if you are continuously growing within the company, you see it as a home that you're able to continuously grow, learn, and there's always an end goal to keep achieving. That is a satisfier. Okay, let's move on to 8. We only have a couple more slides, so thanks for bearing with me. I think I'm going to try to achieve like another 10 more minutes for my students. So this is figure 7.11 in Dr. Mullins' book, and in chapter 7, right? 7:11. So there you have the 11th figure within the chapter. So goal difficulty versus the level of commitment and how it goes loop-de-loo and around and around. So values, okay, what's the values of the company? What's the values of the employee? This is Locke, again, another gentleman, another founder of motivational theory and of management. Your emotions and desires from everybody involved. Even if you're an employee, you would want to get to know your manager, wouldn't you? Right? You want to build rapport. Not, we'd say brown nose. I won't go into the meaning behind that. Or we would say a yes person. If you're a yes person, some people like that. America has just gotten through with President Trump, who I believe is more of, he likes people, a yes president. He wants people to just agree with him constantly. I'm of the different kind. I would think you'd want varied opinions to open your brain and to come together and then have more opportunities to see everything from different perspectives, okay? So those are emotions and desires of everyone involved. Goals or intentions, again, that is number one in any business, is to know the goals and intentions of the business and, of course, the workers. Responses or actions, work behavior and performance. Again, knowing your employees. As a manager, you're taking this class, the survey, and MBAs and managerial is to train you. You're already a leg up. There's another phrase. You're already a leg up over many, because many people do not have the fortune of attending college. So hopefully a goal of yours would be one day to be a manager. So this is more of a managerial perspective, okay? So work performance, knowing your employees and what motivates and, again, drives and compels them. Consequence or feedback, you would want, right? To be a great manager, you want to know what you're doing wrong. So sometimes there's a survey for employees. Describe Cliff, for example, me, right? I don't know what this university will do, but this is my 3rd term, so hopefully I'm doing some things right in terms of educating you at this university. But where's student feedback, right? So it's the same with employee and employer feedback, right? It goes both ways. So as you can see, it goes both ways, up and down. Right? How to achieve. You want the best managers, you want the best workers, etc. Okay, number 9. Let me just go ahead and read this quickly. So managerial practical implications. Goal theory, again, number 1. That's not a person. That is just you need to stay on the path and become goal-oriented in anything. And that I can't see the future changing that much. It may alter. You may have a company that gets into, like, let's look at Tesla nowadays, right? So they have their hands in different pies. That's another slang, right? But they're very good at manipulating or building those pies. So they're good at what they do, which is future and technology, okay? So goal theory has a number of practical implications or managerial implications. Number 1, individuals lacking in motivation often do not have clear goals. That is true, as we've said before. Specific performance goals should systematically be identified and set in order to direct behavior and maintain motivation. Again, if you don't know your daily goal, what you're doing, you're just drifting, right? You're just a ghost. So especially in business, you need to know what the goal is and what the mission is. Number 2, goals should be set as a challenging but realistic level. Of course, if you set the mission too high, or another slang term, the bar too high, that's another sport metaphor. If the bar is too high, you can't achieve it. Now, if you get close to it, right, that's another managerial trick, or right, then you slowly increase it, right? So if profits, never if you're just a money-oriented, goal-oriented company and you're profit-driven, the profit, you can always raise the wishful thinking of the profit margin of why you need to achieve more and more money. Okay, all right, that's a difficult difficult balls to juggle, but that would be a managerial goal. Okay, difficult goals lead to higher performance. However, if goals are set too high, again, a level or are regarded as impossible, mission impossible, maybe you've seen movies like that, then employees just give up because they see the writing on the wall. Is another example that it is just impossible. We can't achieve it, so why even bother? Okay, and this can lead to stress and performance, and it will ultimately suffer. The employees will suffer, especially over the long haul and long period. Okay, number 3. Let's shoot for 50 minutes. I believe it should be these. My overview should be around 50 minutes. So complete, accurate, and timely. Yes, complete, accurate, and timely feedback and knowledge of results is usually associated with higher performance. Okay, that's another tricky English business sentence. But yes, real-time reporting in news, isn't that more exciting and isn't that more believable than opinionated news, which we're inundated with now, right? If you're actually seeing it, another phrase is a picture was worth 1,000 words because you actually saw it, but now everything's digital and Photoshop. But to see a video, it's hard to disbelieve live action and live feeds. So the same, if you can timely give your feedback live on the floor. So if you see sometimes production companies, you'll see a manager walking the floor constantly. Look at casinos, right? They have a manager on the floor overseeing their employees, making sure nothing goes wrong and that they're there at a moment's notice if something goes wrong, okay? So with high performance feedback provides a means of checking progress on goal attainment and forms the basis for any revision of goals. Okay, that's another tricky one too. But feedback, right? Give and take between employees and the manager. And another way too, right, would be your patrons, your customers. You want feedback from them. They're number one. But when you think, right, Marshall Fields was a famous clothier in Chicago. And he said, give the woman what she wants, right? So that's another phrase or quote in business, right? So it was the employee or the patron was always number one. But nowadays, you need to protect the interests of your employees too, right? You can't let them be harassed, which unfortunately is happening as we're all stressed out sometimes with this virus, right? Okay, so feedback provides a means of checking progress on goal attainment and forms the basis for any revision of goals, right? So once you know what's going wrong, then you can adjust it and hopefully smooth it out, right, over the long haul. And the 4th managerial practical implication, goals can be determined either by a superior or by individuals themselves. Generally, it's going to be the higher echelon within a larger company. But again, if you want feedback, if you're just starting a startup, right, a new company, maybe everybody involved, even though it's going to be maybe a cleaner at the, hold on, I'm turning off my alarm for some reason I had it set. If you have a cleaning crew, or if it's a really bottom, so to speak, a bottom rung employee, right? Not in part of the brain trust, but you may want to have their input to create the mission statement, right? It's another form of buy-in. You want to buy-in by all of your employees to make it seem like and to that they're part of the growth and part of the beginning of this company. Okay. So goals can be determined either by a superior individuals themselves. Goals set by other people are more likely to be accepted when there is participation. Again, buy-in. Dr. Mullins doesn't really say that, but that's kind of more of a new aged quote, to have buy-in, company buy-in, employee buy-in. So employee participation in the setting of goals may lead to higher performance. That is dead truth. All right, number 10. So this is the basic model of frustration. Now, in today's world, there's a lot of, you would think, America, the land of the free and the West, right? Some Asians believe we are more free than maybe their countries. I find it's give and take. There's more freedoms here and vice versa. There are different laws, different expectations, especially within the corporate environment. So there's now the inclusion and diversity. Those are the two key terms. Now I believe this will definitely be in our upcoming edition. Now, is that true freedom, or is that government dictate that you must hire, like, say, for example, myself? I must hire someone of color. I must hire now. It's even becoming more diversified. You must have one Hispanic of Hispanic culture, regardless of their resume or background, right? Which is perverse to, in my opinion, to what America was founded on. Even though we had slavery, that was a god awful truth, but was a complete freedom and lack of government intervention. Like if you were a company selling products, I believe it's 15 more. I don't know the exact, again, that's your goal and duty as a manager, is to know the laws around and rules and regulations around your company, but in your field. But I believe if it's more than 15 employees and you're taking advantage of America's grace, right? You're incorporated in America, then you need to hire like one Hispanic, and this is regardless. So even if someone came in with an equal resume, or maybe even unequal, right? The person that you ultimately have to hire, that the government says you have to hire, otherwise you'll get overly taxed or penalized, must be of a certain color, religion, or what have you. That's not very, in my close opinion, that's not very free. That's not diversified. That's regression. You're going back in time. You're just it's merit versus credit, right? You're crediting somebody rather than having them achieve something on merit. So that would almost be converse to this whole chapter on motivation. All right, let's just sum it up here. It's coming up on 50 minutes. So 10 key points to remember. The relationship between the organization and its members is influenced by what motivates them to work and the rewards and fulfillment derived from it. I'll let you make what you want from this. Okay, so basically number one is influence, right? Motivation, how to drive motivation and compel them to work, and then hopefully in turn that will benefit the company. Number two, individuals have a variety of changing and often competing needs and expectations of work, which they attempt to satisfy in a number of ways. True, that's more of a psychological issue or thing. Okay, number three, a person's work motivation, satisfaction, and performance are determined by the comparative strength of economic rewards, intrinsic satisfaction, social relationships. Yes, and by comparative, right, we're going through, as I'm speaking right now, we're going through high inflation in the States, so it's got to be a correlative or a comparative reward, financial reward. So if you're making the salary that you earned last year, you're not getting the same benefit out there outside of work, right? Because you're paying more for a loaf of bread or milk, okay? Number four, there are many competing theories that attempt to explain motivation and work. They show there are many motives that influence people's behavior and performance. Of course, that's why you've read the chapter, and hopefully you've learned some bits and pieces here. And then number five, right? Content theories place emphasis on what actually motivates the individual at work. Main theories include those of Maslow, Alderfer, Noraya, Hertzberg, and McClellan. Number six, process theories are concerned with the dynamic variables that make a motivation. Major approaches include expectancy-based models, right? What's expected of the workers, management, etc. It's a top-down, but it's also a family, so what motivates everybody and what is expected from everyone. Equity theory, right? Are you paying? Are they getting reimbursed? How their work accordingly, and what they're putting into the business. Goal theory and attribution theory. Goal theory we've gone over. That's very important. Attribution or attributive theory. How do you attribute good work? Who gets the reward, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. So number seven, another possible approach to motivation is organizational behavior modification, the application of learning principles to behavior at work. Wow, it's a tough one. We're coming up on the 50 minutes. It looks like we're going to go over a little bit, but that's all right. So let me dissect this for you. Another possible approach to motivation is organizational behavior modification. That changes over time. Again, if you're a teacher and a lesson is just not working out, you change it. You have to have, so for me, in a live classroom especially, if you see the students uninterested, you change something to grab their attention. The same in the workforce. If motivational factors are not compelling them to work, you've got to change the factors, right? You've got to change you've got to modify the motivation, okay? Change it, in other words. So, in the application of learning principles, behavior at work, right? So, to get as much as you can from the employee, it might change over time, those motivational factors, okay? Actually, I believe it's an hour, however long my sessions are with my good students that hopefully are watching. They're going to be forced to watch it, unlike the public, the YouTube watching public here. But so I think it's going to be 55 minutes, but it might be short. So let's just go over the last several here. Number 8, understanding the nature of job satisfaction and links with work performance is not easy. Job satisfaction may affect motivation, but this is not always the case. Another difficult one, let me dissect this. So if you understand the nature of job, so this is why you're taking this survey again, why you're reading this information, and why you're a business student, is to understand what drives, motivates, and compels employees, and hopefully your individual employee, okay? So if you understand that, and how to achieve, and then you also understand how to achieve your goals, your work goals, and you can somehow tie them in together and towards that mission, okay? And then may affect motivation, but this is not always the case. It may, right, you may steamroll over an employee who's just not in line, not in jive with it, and then subsequently that employee is not going to be on board, right? There's another phraseology. It's not going to be on board, so then you may have to evaluate her or his performance and possibly let them go. Sack them, as the British would say, or fire them, as Donald Trump said in The Apprentice. You're fired. Number 9, satisfaction is an internal state associated with the feeling of personal achievement. Yes, right? It is all about the individual. And one approach is in terms of frustration, alienation at work. Again, you might be alienated, to go back what I said, you might be alienated because you didn't get hired, because you don't fit into that box in the Western world of not being a particular color, religion, what have you. Right? Again, antithesis of what many of the countries in the West were founded upon, but again, that's my opinion. All right. And number 10, attention has also been given to a comprehensive model of job enrichment, right? How to make it better. Motivation is also making, right, again, the workplace healthy, clean, hygienic. There's other factors, just not besides financial reward, right? That you want to just make the whole, you're seeing how Google, how Apple, really cool. They have video games. They've got vending machines, great cooks, right? There's other ways to motivate your employee besides just financial reward, okay? Based on skill, variety, task identity, task significance, autonomy, and feedback. Again, there's different, if you're a large company, there's different pockets, there's different departments. So they might not all be driven by the same motivational tool. So you've got to know all of those facets as well. All right, again, thank you very much. This is Cliff Tom, and coming up, it's about, 55 minutes. So hopefully I can tie this video into the PowerPoint and upload it on YouTube. So that would be a first for me in these virus-riddle times. So, all right, thank you very much. Bye-bye. 再见，水省，我中国大学学生，my Chinese university students. I'll see you again. Bye-bye.